Hey, Brady here with Real Estate Resource. I am a real estate broker here in Middle Tennessee. On this channel, I'm seeking to provide information and education to the general public about the real estate industry. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about the question, do I need a realtor to buy a home? Let's jump right in. The answer to this question is no, you do not need a realtor to buy a home. There are no laws or rules that state you have to have a realtor represent you buy a home. Now, that said, it's my opinion, and I strongly suggest that you get a buyer agent or realtor to help represent you buy a home. And there's always pros and cons to each and everything you do in life, right? Something that I firmly believe is the job and industry of being a realtor. It's a service industry. I think somewhere along the way, I don't know when or where it happened or who's to blame, but somewhere along the way, it's now perceived more as a sales industry, and so be it. But I just really believe it's a service industry, and maybe people will disagree with that, and that's totally fine, and that's a whole nother discussion. But when I talk about service industry, the job of being a realtor, I really equate it, and I think it's a fair parallel when I think about contractors. I'm talking about plumbers, electricians, HVAC, roofers. I think there's a fair parallel when talking about that. And let me explain. So when you're considering doing anything in life that is a service, I think it's important to look at who you're talking to in the company. You know, when you're in traffic, you're sitting at a red light, and maybe you need some HVAC work done on your house. Maybe it's a small or a larger project, but maybe you don't have any background knowledge in HVAC. You see an HVAC truck, you see the name of the company, you see licensed and insured. That makes you feel a little bit better as a consumer about potentially using that company, right? Given your background knowledge, your budget, what you're looking to do, that usually will give you a little bit better peace of mind. And so what does that mean? They're licensed and insured. If you're licensed, that means you as that contractor have invested your resources to get that license. That costs money. It takes time and energy to get that license. And once you have received that license, now you have at least some type of foundational knowledge about that service and industry that you're working in. And then also coupled with that, you have insurance to cover anything in case something goes wrong. So it kind of gives you peace of mind, some confidence as a consumer if you need to use that service, right? Similarly to working with a realtor. If you are a realtor, you're working with a realtor, they are licensed, they are insured. If you are a realtor, you have to go to real estate school, you have to take some tests, pass some exams, a state, national exam, and then you have at least some type of foundational knowledge of the real estate industry, how it works, and also you're insured, right? Let's go back to the contractor idea. I use a specific scenario frequently, and you might hear me talk about it in other videos or in person if we're talking in person, but picture this and stick with me here. Imagine that you want to build a covered deck attached to the backside of your home, right? Do you have to hire a contractor to do this? No, you don't. I mean, maybe there's a few instances where, depending on where you live or what you're looking to do, you might have to, but let's kind of put that aside. I'm acknowledging that, but most cases, no, you don't have to hire somebody. You could do that yourself, right? But what does that mean if you want to do it yourself? Maybe you do have some background knowledge in carpentry, or you are a contractor, but let's assume you're not for this scenario, which most people are not. So what does that mean? You want to build a covered deck. Okay, well, you have to demo the deck that's already there, or at least prep the ground for what's to come. You have to figure out what equipment you need, how to operate, learn how to operate that equipment safely, hopefully. Figure out what materials you need. Are those materials, are they good materials? Are they up to code materials? Then you have to learn the skills of building this covered deck, right? And that could take a lot of time, and really it could take you potentially a lot more time than if you were to hire it out. But let's say you do have this time, you do have these extra resources to do this project. You're building this deck. Something else to consider is, depending on where you live, again, There might be certain permits that are required. Those permits usually imply there's going to be some type of inspection based off of building codes. You got to figure out what those building codes are. How do I even make sure they're in compliance with those building codes? How do I get an inspector out to inspect them? Because if you don't do that, you could, years down the road or later after you finish the project, hopefully it's a decent and safe project, but let's say years go by, you make your neighbor mad, they could call it in and say, hey, this guy didn't pull a permit on his house. That could put you as risk as the homeowner, right? You get my point in this scenario of building this deck, right? There are certain risks associated with it. Now, granted, maybe you have a high tolerance for risk, given that it's just a covered deck, and maybe you do have some background knowledge and you're willing to put those resources out there for yourself to do it yourself. Now, when you're building a deck, you're talking bottom end is probably a few $1,000s, and it could be upwards of tens of thousands of dollars, right? So here's that scenario. Let's table that. When you're buying a home with a realtor, not only you and your family hopefully will be living there, but we're going to assume it's a pre-existing home. Hopefully they'll be living there for years to come, right? And then also, one of probably the biggest factor, it's not a couple $1,000s to tens of thousands of dollars. It's hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? There's a higher risk level, right? There's more at stake. So I kind of get back to the licensed and insured, working with a professional who works within the industry, right? And then also to kind of expand upon working with a realtor, I have a whole nother video of the steps of how to buy a house, right? But let's talk about what you're getting when you work with a realtor. We've already talked about the risks, what's at stake. There's more risks associated with buying real estate, right? When you're working with a realtor, you're not just getting them and what they do within their field. You're getting their network, the needed network. When you're buying a home, you're going to need a lender. Realtors work with lenders. If you're getting a mortgage, you're going to need a lender. Lenders come with appraisers. And then also during the under contract phase of buying a home, you're going to need an inspector. Realtors work with inspectors. Inspectors and realtors work a lot with each other. Realtors look at inspection reports all the time. They can kind of help you decipher between the inspection report and the inspector versus other homes that they've looked at. Now, granted, realtors aren't contractors. Most of them aren't, but they'll be able to help you kind of read through those reports and answer any questions as far as like how the reports are laid out and things of that nature. Those are vital parts of the process in order to buy a home. And then probably the most important part about working with a buyer agent is here in Middle Tennessee, when you are working with a buyer agent and you are working with them, that means you have signed some type of document or form that states your professional working relationship. Here in Middle Tennessee, that's called an exclusive buyer agent representation agreement, right? So whenever you sign it, when both parties sign it, you are stating to the world that this realtor, that is you acting as your buyer agent, representing you by real estate. They are a licensed real estate professional. They have a heightened knowledge and experience level than the general public within real estate. And they are your fiduciary as the buyer. That means they have a legal obligation, a legal requirement to act in your best interest as the buyer. As long as you're asking them to do stuff that is legal, it has to be legal. They have to do what you ask them to do. And they're announcing, I'm a professional in the real estate industry. I'm acting in your best interest. I have to do what you ask me to do. That sounds pretty good to me, right? Especially when you're putting up a pretty high risk. There's a lot at stake. And then also, I get this question a lot, is how are they paid? I could probably make a whole nother video about this, but I'll just kind of skim through this pretty quickly. When you sign that exclusive buyer representation agreement, it will state their fiduciary obligation to you, act in your best interest. It will also put on there their fee. They're stating, in order for me to do this, this is my fee. This is what I charge. It also states on there that as the buyer agent, as the realtor acting for your representation to buy the house, I am allowed and I can ask the seller to pay my fee at closing. So that's on the exclusive buyer representation agreement. And here in Middle Tennessee, that's pretty common Every house can be a little bit different. It really depends. Keep in mind, all fees and commissions are negotiable. They're not set by law. I'm simply stating what is on the exclusive buyer representation that you will likely end up signing, and you will sign it if you're working with a buyer agent. But keep that in mind. It is very possible, and in the past, it's very possible and likely that the seller can pay your buyer agent their fee. Now, it also states that if the seller does not pay the entire fee, that you as the buyer could be liable and likely would be liable to cover the difference. That's what the paperwork states, right? Now, granted, again, this is all negotiable stuff, so keep that in mind. And sometimes the deals work perfectly smooth and none of this is an issue. The seller ends up paying for it all. Sometimes the commissions and the fees might come into play, but I'm simply stating what the document states so you as the buyer can be fully aware of what's actually happening. And I should probably make another video on how realtors are paid. That would probably be a good video for me to make. I'm realizing that now as I make this video. But anyway, I talked for too long. I was trying to make this video shorter. I apologize for that, but that is my take within, I think this is maybe less than 15 minutes. I'm not sure, on the question, do I need a realtor to buy a house? Short answer, no, you don't, but you definitely should. And there's a pretty decent chance that you won't have to pay them out of your own pocket. There's a chance that could happen, and a pretty decent chance, depending on who you're working with. If you have any further questions, I would love to talk with you about them or whatever they may be. Like I said, I'm located here in Middle Tennessee. I work out through the whole area of Middle Tennessee. I truly seek to be a resource for anybody and everybody out there that have questions about real estate. My whole purpose for this channel is to kind of pull back the veil behind what's happening in the real estate industry, and hopes to better educate the general public on what's happening, and hopefully to be a market leader and to hopefully get your business. So anyways, I appreciate you watching this video. Please send me an email. I always put my email in the video description. And also, honestly, I'm not hard to find on Google either. If you go on Google and search my name, Brady Springer, real estate broker, you'll find me as well. So anyways, thanks for watching and hope to see you next time. Bye.